We're entering to the month of Av, Mishenichnas Av, Mima'atin B'Simcha, and I like to say over an idea that I try and say over every single year because I think it's very, very profound and very, very real. We find when it comes to Tisha B'av, and in general, when we go ahead and we're finding ourselves in this 3-week period where the nature of what the Gemara calls Aveilus Yeshana, the ancient Aveilus, is it's very, very hard for us to connect to Aveilus Yeshana. We didn't even know, we didn't have the Beis HaMikdash, we don't really tap into what Beis HaMikdash is, so how can we properly feel the loss? And therefore Chazal, in their infinite wisdom, set up for us a process of helping us connect to this sense of Aveilus Yeshana, this ancient Aveilus that we are supposed to feel in a very, very real way. And therefore there's a build-up. We start with the 3 weeks, and that begins our period of Aveilus from the Bein HaMetzarim, from Shivasar B'Tammuz. And then we intensify as we hit Rosh Chodesh Av, and we have the 9 days. And then we intensify a further level of Shavua Shechal Bo, and then the most intense is Tisha B'av itself. But it is striking and it's fascinating and interesting to think about the fact that on Tisha B'av itself, all of a sudden in the middle of the day at Chatzos, we start to step back a little bit from the sense of Aveilus. We start to recede in our Aveilus just a little bit. We are certainly still fasting, but all of a sudden now we can sit on proper chairs. And all of a sudden, a little bit of a recession of that sense of Aveilus. We put on tefillin, we put on talis in shul, and there seems to be a little bit gradually a minimizing of that sense of Aveilus. And in fact, I would argue the exact opposite, because Chazal tell us that the Beis HaMikdash actually was really burning towards the end of the day on Tisha B'av, and even on Yud B'Av was when the Beis HaMikdash was actually burning. That's why we go ahead and we continue not doing laundry and not eating meat until Chatzos of Yud B'Av, because the Beis HaMikdash is still burning. I would have thought that that's probably the most intense period of Aveilus, when the Beis HaMikdash is literally burning down, yet all the 3 weeks we start to build up, and then on Tisha B'av itself, at Chatzos, a little bit of decline in that sense of Aveilus. Why is that? This is a very, very beautiful medrash. It's quoted by Tosfos and Rashi, Maseches Kiddushin, Daf Lamed Aleph Amud Beis. And the Gemara here, the medrash cites a kina, not a kina, but actually a mizmor in Tehillim, which starts off mizmor la'asaf and then goes on to describe the terrible churban of the Beis HaMikdash. But it opens up a nevuah of mizmor la'asaf. And the question is, why mizmor la'asaf? The Medrash wants to know. Why doesn't it say kina la'asaf? Why not kina la'asaf? Why mizmor la'asaf? And the Medrash says very, very beautifully that basically Klal Yisrael was hanging in the balance, and Hashem could have destroyed all of Klal Yisrael. Mamash a churban, not just of the Beis HaMikdash, but of the entire Jewish people. And the Medrash says that there was a little bit of a Nechama on Tisha B'av itself, because Hashem could have taken out his anger at the Jewish people by totally wiping us off, and that's not what he did. Kol Sachamaso, his anger was squelched, was quenched, be'etzim v'avonim, on the sticks and stones of the Beis HaMikdash, in lieu of the flesh and bones of Klal Yisrael. He could have, and he perhaps deserved, to be entirely destroyed, and Kol Sachamaso al etzim v'avonim. And therefore, within Tisha B'av itself, there's a little bit of a Nechama Purta, that we're still here. We're still surviving. And that was revealed to the Jewish people already in the afternoon of Tisha B'av. As Rav Soloveitchik points out, is that by the afternoon we already understood that we were going to make it. We were not going to be destroyed, and Hashem was going to take out his anger on the Beis HaMikdash, but not on us. And as a result, there is a bit of a Nechama, a little bit of a Nechama that we experience on Tisha B'av itself, and hence we go ahead and minimize a little bit the Aveilus of Tisha B'av. Even though you might argue that should be its most intense period of time, that is not the case, and there's a little bit of a Nechama towards the end of the day where we realize that we're going to go ahead and make it. It's a very big challenge to properly get into Tisha B'av, and sometimes you have to realize we don't really understand what the Beis HaMikdash is, but we understand what the Jewish people are. We understand what it means to have a sense of nitzchias, and that after all these years of persecution, after all of these harsh golios, after all of these Holocausts and Inquisitions and pogroms and churbanos, but we somehow miraculously are still here. We have Eretz Yisrael. We're alive. We're thriving, despite all of the challenges around us. Our neighbors and sinas chinam, and the challenges on college campuses, and all the terrible things, but we still continue. And therefore there's a little bit of a Nechama and a mizmar la'asaf, and you need to help get into Tisha B'av. So perhaps that's a little bit of an assist in getting into Tisha B'av, to understand, yes, we don't fully tap into what the Beis HaMikdash was, what we're missing by not having a Beis HaMikdash. But we do understand that the Beis HaMikdash was destroyed so we could live on. And that creates upon us a tremendous mechuyavus. And I'll just close with a medrash, not a medrash, a story, a mashal, that I like to say over. I heard this from one of my children's rabbeim when my child was in 5th grade, but it always remembers, and it really speaks to me. And the story goes, it's a mashal. The story goes of a couple that has a very difficult time having children. Many years they're trying to have children, to no avail. And finally, after 10, 12 years, the wife becomes pregnant. And they're thrilled. 9 months later, she goes into labor. The labor does not go well. And the doctor comes to the husband, to the wife, and says, I'm sorry. I'm not going to be able to save the baby and you, the mother. It's going to be a choice of either the baby or the mother. I cannot save both. And the couple looks at each other. It's a mashal, it's not a true story. The couple looks at each other and says, we tried so hard. The mother says, I could not go on to live if we didn't let our child survive. So they made a decision to let the baby live, and the mother's going to give herself up. And of course, that's not what the halacha says, but that's our mashal. And the baby's born, and the mother unfortunately passes away. And year goes by, year after year, and now it's 13 years later, and it's this boy's bar mitzvah. And happens to be also the yortzeit of his mother. So they go to the Beis HaKvaros, and for the first time in his life, the boy is going to say Kaddish by the kever of his mother. And they're out there about to say Kaddish, they have a minyan. He starts to say Yiskadal, Yiskadash, and all of a sudden there's a bird fluttering in the distance, and the boy gets distracted. He loses his place. His father gets him back on track. A few more sentences in, and there's another noise, a ruffling, a squirrel. The boy once again gets distracted, and the father gets him back on place. But the boy seems to be not all there. And finally, when the Kaddish is over, the father says to his son, I don't understand. Why were you so distracted? Why couldn't you get through the Kaddish? Little things kept on distracting you. You couldn't focus. And the son said, Abba, you're right. But listen, I'm saying Kaddish for my mother. I never met my mother. I never knew who she was. She never cared for me. She never acted for me as a mother. So the truth is, I don't feel the loss. I don't feel connected. I don't really know what I'm missing. So yes, I don't have focus in my Kaddish. And the father says to his son, you're right. You never met your mother. But your mother made the ultimate sacrifice that you could be here. If it wasn't for her sacrifice, you would not be here today. It was either you or your mother, and your mother says, I want you to go on. I want you to live on. And therefore you owe everything to your mother. So the nimshal, of course, is Hashem could have taken his anger out on us, but he chose to take his anger out on the Beis HaMikdash, on Eitzim va'avanim, that enabled us to continue on. So true, we never met the Beis HaMikdash. We never met our mother. We don't really understand what that's all about. Not really. But it was a choice of us or Mikdash. And Hashem chose us over the Beis HaMikdash, and therefore, to appreciate the sacrifice and try and tap in what it means to have a mother. How life is so different when you have a mother, when you have a base. It's so different. To tap into that a little bit on these 9 days. Tap into it a little bit on Tisha B'av itself. And then as we, Be'ez Hashem, emerge from Tisha B'av, to have a sense of Nechama and realize that we're here, we're thriving, we're surviving, not just surviving, but thriving. And that sense of Hakaras Hatov to Hashem for everything that He gives us, enables us, notwithstanding all the tsaros and all the galios, we continue to thrive. That's the Nechama that inheres in these days, and the days of Tisha B'av and Be'ez Hashem. These days will be transformed, as the Navi tells us, from days of Aveilus to days of true simcha with the coming of Mashiach.